friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here to share with you a peppermint cream pie recipe that I started making years ago. I'd found the recipe somewhere online, and here actually are the last two pieces left because I'd made it yesterday, but I did get some pictures and some video clips I'll be including in here, and I'll be giving you the written recipe and putting that in a link down below. So if you need that, you don't have to take notes. I'll have it all ready for you. And this is a great wintertime pie, especially because you can usually find peppermints easily this time of year. And in this case, though you can use regular hard candy canes, going for the softer peppermints are better. So for example, using like the Bob's Sweet Stripe. So they're not organic, unfortunately, but if you can find some organic ones, great. I have a hard time finding such things. And this is why it's something I haven't made in like 10 years or more. But it is a great sweet treat to serve for whatever occasion it is. We just had our regular monthly family and friends game and dinner night. And so I decided it was time to finally make one of these again. Now in this case, I did actually make a gluten-free crust because our friends are gluten-free, or most of them are. And so I did just make the recipe up as I went. So I'll go ahead and give you the instructions for that as well. But you can use whatever, you can use a regular graham cracker crust, a chocolate graham cracker crust is going to be best, or whatever your favorite chocolate crust recipe is, you can use that. It doesn't have to be my specific recipe. So let's go ahead and get started on that so I can give you the instructions. So for the gluten-free, what I did was I used that gluten-free flour recipe that I had come across online somewhere, and I shared it in a previous video. So I'll be putting that full recipe here and in that recipe, because I can't remember it off the top of my head, because when I used this, it was actually the leftovers from when I made the gluten-free cowboy cookies, because I'd made a big batch of flour so I could put the rest of it up. And so it's a blend that you make yourself, and I used white rice flour, brown rice flour, potato starch, and tapioca starch. It could be any gluten-free flour, by the way. It doesn't have to be one. It could be one that you buy already pre-mixed. I took 1 1/3 cups of that flour and put it in a bowl. And then I added to that only about 1/3 cup of sugar. I didn't want to put too much sugar. I didn't want to make it very sweet. If you're using graham crackers that already have sugar in them, I wouldn't add any sugar to it at all, because the pie itself is pretty sweet. But since we're making the crust chocolate, it does help to have a little bit of sugar in there to help break that up, the chocolate flavor. And so then to that, I first started with 1/4 cup of cocoa because I was making it up as I went, and then decided it didn't look dark enough and I was sure it wasn't chocolatey enough. So I put in another 1/4 cup, and you can see, I'll show you the color here. It turned out perfect. So after I got the dry ingredients blended well, I put 6 tablespoons of melted butter in there and mixed it in well until it clumped together really well. And then with my fingers, I pressed it and shaped it into the pie pan like that. And then I baked it at 325 for about 7 or 8 minutes. So you want to watch it closely. You don't want to burn it. You just want to bake it. That's all, so that will hold together real nicely. Now let's get on to the filling. So first, let me list off the things that you're going to need. You're going to need some gelatin. Now, that can be the Knox gelatin you buy in the packs if that's easy enough for you. I prefer to use a beef gelatin when I'm doing this. So Now Foods carries one, Zint carries one. I know I have Now Foods in this one, but I have both stocked up on. And it's a flavorless gelatin, so if you're using it this way, instead of using a package of gelatin, what's in a package is a tablespoon. So you're gonna need a tablespoon of your gelatin powder. You're going to need a full 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, 8 ounces of your peppermint candies, and that's it for the filling. So what you're going to start with is you're going to take that tablespoon of gelatin and you're going to add, oh, and I forgot the water. You're going to add a 1/4 cup of water to that in a small bowl and just set it aside. It'll immediately start to set up and it'll become almost solid while you're doing that. And then in the meantime, what you're going to want to do is you're going to take your peppermints, and what I did in this case, because I thought it would be easier, is I just took the peppermints in the wrappers and went ahead and weighed out up to 9 ounces. So even though it says 8 ounces, I went ahead and weighed up to 9 ounces of the candies with the wrappers on there, because I knew the wrappers were going to add some weight, but I didn't want to open too many at once and just be guessing, because you want to crush these. And that's why the soft ones are best, because they're easier to crush and they melt faster. And so in this case, however you crush them is up to you. I've tried it several different ways, but what I did in this case is I just took a heavy pan and I took a few of the candies at a time, and then I used the fruit masher that Patrick made me, and I just smashed them until they broke up into smaller pieces. They don't have to be teeny tiny. And then I just kept putting those back into that measuring cup a little at a time. And so, obviously taking the wrappers off one at a time until I got through all of them. And plus you're going to want a few extra out, because you're going to use those to crush later and then put on the top, as you can see right here. And since this was from last night and it's already been cut, what you're seeing here is some of the candies that were on top that drizzled down. And then this was a peppermint chocolate candy I also added to it, just to give a little more color to the top. But you could do that same thing with chocolate graham crackers or chocolate cookie. Just crumble it up to add a little color to the top. And here's a picture of a one I made years ago, probably the last one I made. And you can see I did the same thing there. I put a little bit of chocolate on top along with the crushed candy. So anyway, back to that. So once you have all your candy crushed, you're going to put it back into your pan all together. And then in that pan, you're going to add a half cup of the heavy whipping cream, and then you're going to cook it. I just did it right on my wood stove. You don't want to cook it on too high of a heat because it could easily burn. So low to medium heat, and you're just going to keep going back and stirring it until the candy is fully melted. And then once you have the candy fully melted, then you're going to take that clump of gelatin and you're going to add that into the pot and then stir that in until it's fully mixed and melted in there with the candy. Then you're going to take that off the heat, and then while that's cooling down to room temperature, you don't want it to cool down to cold because it's going to set up and then you're going to have to remelt it. So you're just trying to get it down to just above room temperature because you want it to still be mixable and pourable. So while that's cooling down, that you take that other cup and a half of heavy cream and you're going to whip that up. Now personally, what I like to use is this egg beater right here. So I just do it by hand like this. It works really well. You're less likely to overbeat it and have it turn back to liquid again, but you can use an electric hand mixer if you want. So you're just going to whip that up like you normally would whipping cream. If you've never made whipped cream before, I do have a video out on that I'll link to down below. However, in this case, you're not going to add any sugar or anything to it. You don't need to add anything to it, just plain old whipped cream. And then once you get that to where it's got the nice stiff peaks, and then your candy gelatin mixture is cooled down enough, because obviously you don't want to add it to your whipped cream when it's hot because it will liquefy the whipped cream and then you'll have just wasted all your time and there's no way to get it back to a whipped form. So you're going to pour that into the whipped cream. You're going to fold it in gently and you just keep carefully folding it in. So what I did was I poured in half. I folded some of that in just lightly, work slowly. Don't do this with it. You're working gently with it. Then I took that rubber spatula and scraped out the rest of that candy gelatin mixture and poured that over the top, and then finished mixing that in until it looked this color here. So it should be completely pink when it's fully mixed. Then you pour it into your prepared pie crust, put it in the fridge and let it chill, and it will completely set up. So again, you want to make sure you pour that in there before it starts to set up. Otherwise, you're going to have a harder time getting it into your pan and have it look nice. And then you can just spread the top of it, once you pour it in there, however you want. You can make little peaks, you can spread it smooth, and then sprinkle the top. It was a hit. They loved it. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say that I did add in as an extra, just to give it more of a even creamier type flavor, was I did go ahead and put about a tablespoon of my homemade vanilla extract into the mixture, the candy and gelatin mixture, before I started folding it into the whipped cream. So you can do that. It's totally optional. I like the flavor it adds when I do that. So there you go, peppermint cream pie. If you've never tried it, it might be a new idea for you for the winter time. Well, it's a great pie any time of the year. You don't have to do it in the winter time. You can do it in midsummer. It might even be better than anyway, because peppermint is naturally cooling. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and it just gave you a new idea. And don't forget to check that recipe link, written recipe link that will include photos, a lot of the photos that you've seen in this video, in the description box down below, so that you can just copy it and put it into your own document, and no need to write anything down unless you want to make your own adds to it. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.